Look, and now the helicopter's back over me. That's twice now. That's not a coincidence. Let me explain to you. And I'm not saying that I'm more important than the next person, but for many decades, I have known that I've been chosen for a special mission. And I want to report to you that I've been shown many powerful things the last 2 nights. And now I know too that when we die, our spirit mission still continues. And we appear in spirit form sometimes as how we look in some of our incarnations still. I saw my dead friend James last night in my travels. And I was told that he is part of my team, my mission here. Hi, Lydia. Morning. For those that don't know, and this will be recorded, so I could replay this for my patrons. But for those that don't know, certain times of the year are powerful times where dimensions can merge, and certain people that I feel their body has been physically tinkered with or activated or however you want to put it with are able to walk between worlds, especially at certain key points where you can slip through the web through entry points. So there are physical coordinates on this planet that are specifically watched by the military. You guys can't hear me at all? I'm walking right now, a couple miles down the road from my house. Been walking since I woke up. Well, I only slept about 2 or 3 hours, but I'm bringing you guys to the spot. I watched the sunrise. I awoke out of my Ember Day travels the last 2 nights for the equinox with powerful information. And you can see this area. Look at what lines the road. All here. We're right on the Hudson River, basically. It's right over these trees here. Now there's a road that runs right through here, right? Houses are built right on top of it, but this is a whole magic area. And there's been a white gowned lady that has been appearing around my home. Even my wife saw her legs outside the window and her gown flowing in the wind as she walked past our window on the bottom floor. And I saw her last night, and she explained a few things to me and even showed me points around my area that have been basically hijacked as well, and turned a powerful energy spot into basically a negative energy spot in a way. still trying to process everything I saw last night and the night before. And you can see how these are really old rock walls too that align the road here. This is all property though. At one time this wasn't the road. Look at it says acreage right there. This is abandoned because, and now they have put, this is the spot we're coming up on. And this is one of the spots the flowing gown lady showed me. And now they have these huge towers here, energy towers, right, for electricity and television, cable, and on everything, all these powers. See the coils they have on those shits too? Right, so, and this whole spot, you see how it says acreage there? This is an abandoned lot with many, many, many acres that go, and we're right on a very high energetic point right here, right? And this spot has been abandoned for a while, a very long time. And the flowing gown lady even showed me this spot, and it goes for acres back, right? And I was shown that on a future timeline, the reason why these cosmic wars, because on certain days of the year, like the solstice and the equinox, my Italian heritage calls these, I guess you could say, astral warriors or dream seers. They call them the benandante and the malandante, the good walkers and the bad walkers, basically, astral wars that are taking place on certain days of the year, like the equinox and the solstice. Certain people that have chose to be chosen, basically, they fall into a deep sleep during those nights, and their souls or spirit bodies, basically almost 100% of your spirit energy, which is very dangerous, is traveling through the Taurus field, through another parallel dimension associated with our world, a future parallel dimension that is an accelerated point of cosmic chaos, and it is collapsing in on itself, and it's directly related to what's taking place on our world. And in this realm, almost 100% of humanity have these spirit being type figures hovering inside their toroidal space, hovering over their Taurus field, controlling it, controlling the way it spins, controlling the way it feeds divine information to your pineal gland. And your pineal gland is acting like a super interplanetary space station. And it has a whole billions of satellites, and those satellites are your cells in your body. And each one of your cells has a Taurus field spinning with it. And that nest of cells makes up your auric energy and your bio friggin' energetic field, right? And there's literally a war taking place over control over who we are, our divine river of light. We are personal avatars. That's what our bodies are. And this is the one of the spots that have been abandoned on these acres, right? And this is the spot where the white-gowned lady showed me that there's geopathic stress, negative stress lines that have been formed on this location. This is a very haunted area. There's cosmic wars taking place over archangelic intelligence, if you want to call it alien intelligence, archangel intelligence, whatever you want to call it. you know, like instantaneously, like a wave of consciousness, things can be changed. People don't realize this, but there's a wave of consciousness that could come over humanity on a collective basis with the powers of the mind, with discovery. And these technologies that are arising on our planet now are trying to stop that, are taking the place of those functions for us to be able to connect to that. They are replicating that and taking the place of it naturally. And literally, there's been a war that has been taking place for many, many hundreds or thousands of years throughout bloodlines, throughout certain people, and my body had been changed through certain events that I went through in my life. Certain things were changed within my brain, within my auric energy, my auric field during my near-death experiences to make my body, I think, physically be able to travel like that and become a traveler. I mean, and I'm going on Leak Project to further talk about it on tomorrow. You know, I disappeared into another dimension associated with this realm in physical reality. In my dream world, you know, I do travel, especially on these certain nights of the year. And growing up as a kid, I didn't understand and weren't even putting the pieces together at those certain days. You know, I had to be shown that this is actually a thing. And once you start remembering who you are, you're given more information that you can actually retain when you wake up. Most people can't retain a lot of information because they won't be able to handle it. Their lives won't be able to continue in the physical reality at all. And this is not something we can talk about really even. It's really even dangerous to admit that these things take place. And the reason why I have gone public with some of this information is because the time is now for us to remember on a collective basis before we lose ourselves. And there's no more standing in the shadows. Well, that's very interesting. Because that's exactly where your Lutz bone is. In the chat room. Lydia. You know, that's exactly where your Lutz bone is, and that's actually a known thing that's happened to. You know, I hate to put labels on things, but if you look at it from an ancient Hindu Vedic aspect, Lydia, then it's I would call it like Naga type Nephilim technology, where these it's a technology where they literally look like little pearl beads, like little pearl stones. And it's actually like some sort of nanotechnology, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, that, you know, that when they place it at certain energy centers, it fires beams of friggin' information and light or whatever it's doing, like rapid fire to all your energy centers. It floods all your Taurus, you know, your Tauri. It's like inserted right in the middle of the Taurus, like in the tube. Like think of it like a little friggin' tire tube, like for a bicycle, like a round tube or a donut tube or like a bagel, what a bagel looks like, and you're plopping the pearl right in the middle of the bagel, right? It all has to do with Taurus, the Taurus shape, that torus, that's exactly what our Earth is as well. That's why people think there's a flat Earth. It's not a flat Earth. We're living in it's in a sphere, but the top surface is flat of the sphere. But it's more, it's more to that. And the inside is not hollow. It's filled with information and structures and everything that takes place with the torus dimension. I might know a little bit more than the average person, but on the grand scale of things, I don't know anything. And I have some answers for people, or I could connect the dots for some people, right, on a small scale. But for us to all really make achievements and higher progression spiritually in the world, it's on a mass scale that we all have to start to awaken, a collective level. And it's really hard to get other people to actually accept and listen to this sort of information. So I appreciate also you guys being here. It's very intense. I mean, there's some things I don't know if it was exactly 100% of my being who I am now that was this person in another life, or it's part of me, like little fractals of me. They're like little fractals of me from other incarnations are now collective into this one being. So it might have been one fractal of my eternity, right? But in 1692, there was a wave of negative energy that came on the planet as well. There's been certain times where waves of positive consciousness have come over the planet, like a tidal wave of energy, right? And there's times where negative energy have come across the world. And in 1692, there was a wave and a negative extermination of spiritual energy taking place. And the way it domino effect down into our physical realm was they literally were burning witches, burning spiritualists, and burning mystics, burning them alive in physical reality as well. And the most powerful ones were never killed. They were most likely, if anything, captured or coerced to join with others. What they did kill is the low-level mystics, the ones just awakening to their powers. The ones just starting to remember who they are. Master spiritualists are usually never killed unless they offer themselves to be killed. Even like Jesus. He agreed to go along with that. He sacrificed himself as well, basically. That's what I believe. And I'm pretty well known within the occult world because of the little bit of documents that we have. And I do feel that in a prior life, part of a fractal of who I was part of this man. And in 1692, there was a man that talked about Inquisition, and you could even find a little bit about him in the book by Carlo Ginzburg called Night Battles, where they talk about one of the only books in the world that actually reports about the war between Dante and Dante. One of my favorite books that I've had since the 1980s, I guess it was. Originally it was titled I, Benedante. Carlo Ginzburg, one of my favorite professors and teachers and historians of the Italian witchcraft and Italian occult, Italian mystics. He's actually a Jewish Italian, I think he still teaches. He's older now. He's got to be in his 80s by now, or late 70s or 80s now. But he he I think he might still be a professor in California. I'm not sure, but he's in, I think it was like in the 1970s or early 1980s, he was allowed access to some of the courtroom testimonies that took place during, for the Holy See, you know, the Vatican, during all these years, like the 1500s, the 1400s, the 1600s, where they were prosecuting and sometimes sentencing to death the witches or mystics or psychics, you know. And one of the bands that they talk about, who now has like gained legendary status among certain sections of the paranormal, like even people that research werewolves and dogmen. So there was a man named Thies in 1692, Thiess, and he was part of the Benedante. There are different clans of Benedante, or good walkers. And, you know, some of them walk a fine line between the good and the bad as well. Sometimes the lines blur. And one of the abilities in astral form, in dream form, is to be able to transform into animals, you know, transform into spirit beasts, transform into hybrid creatures even. This is part of who we are. This is part of our imagination. This is part of our chemistry of who we are. It's in the collective consciousness for as long as we exist. These types of beings, there's a reason why. It's because we can shapeshift to these types of beings. This is the reason why you even see certain Native American tribes that some of their most oldest and ancient and strongest beliefs are of these spirit transformations. Even Catholic saints were able to transform. You know, some of the founders of the Jesuits, with their spiritual exercises, even had powers to transform. All right? So people has become demonized. Certain words and certain, just the word occult has become demonized. You know, so you got to take a look at that as well. That happens for a reason. And Thies was part of a hereditary family such as mine, and he was born of the call like mine. He was born in the amniotic sac as well. And he was basically calling himself the hound, the dogs of heaven, right? Like literally God's werewolves, where God has heavenly defenders of good that can transform and become like dogs of heaven, literally. You got dogs of hell, but there's dogs of heaven as well. You hear the dogs in the background. And Thies was known, the dogs are confirming, and Thies was known as one of the hounds of heaven. And he would transform to some sort of werewolf type being on the solstice and the equinox and certain key points of the year. And he would dive into himself. He would dive into himself, into his torus field into a parallel dimension associated with our world that I feel is a future timeline where things are collapsing. Where there are literal carrier type beings that are carrying your torus field, controlling humanity. This is what happened with Ezekiel. This is what Ezekiel saw. When they talk about chariot wheels of Ezekiel's vision, that is the spinning torus field that he saw. The reason why they call Torah the Torah is because of Taurus. No one really figures this out and talks about this. But even the word Torah is from the torus field. T-O-R-U-S, Taurus. T-O-R-A-H, Torah. The toroidal space. Our toroidal creation. We did not form from Big Bang, from what I've been shown. We formed from a divine intelligence. You know what brings life here? Comets, asteroids, meteorites. They are activated, they are called to our planet. They are divine light intelligence that gets sent here. It doesn't come here by mistake. Nothing comes into our atmosphere by mistake. And the light that surrounds comets, when you see comets traveling and that divine light that is around them, the light that's emanating from a comet has the most intelligent information. It has creation codes. Creation codes. All right? Comets travel with creation codes. It is a caravan from God. And this is becoming epic because I was shown this. That's why I had to go live as soon as I was walking, coming up from the sunset. I don't even remember going for the walk and actually leaving the house. This is at home again. See, look at 7.5 acres has just been abandoned for like 20 or 30 years already. This whole lot. And like I said, they put those huge, massive 7.5 acres. It's huge for this neighborhood too. This neighborhood has like small backyards. And then all of a sudden this lot has 7.5 acres. They put these huge friggin' towers pumping out negative orgone. And you know, Thief was not killed. Like I say, they don't kill the most powerful ones. That man Thief, he only had to leave after admitting that he's a hound of heaven. They gave him a few lashes and sent him on his way. Other ones that have it, that in that same courtroom admitted to casting a love spell on somebody and were burned alive. But this man admits that he's a werewolf battling witches for God. And they let him go with a few lashes. So that goes to show you right there. The truly powerful ones were never burned alive. One of the only ones that was Giordano Bruno. And it took them almost a decade of keeping him in the dungeon to do it. He refused to join them. Most people, it's either join us and we'll give you your own lab, we'll give you your own shit to work with, we'll even call you a saint if you make some discoveries. Or if you don't join us, we'll end up killing you. You know? And they kept Giordano Bruno, who is a distant relative of my elder, one of my aunts, Lori Bruno. You know? Through marriage, she's related, not blood, but basically a higher elder in my hereditary line that I'm even a reverend of. And they kept Giordano Bruno in a dungeon for like 9 years. He was forced to like eat rats and shit, you know, and then finally oh man, yeah, my heel is really jammed up right now because I've been walking. I have a bad foot. But I'm going to do another stream later too. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll pick this up later. Spiral out.